But most of all, I think the movie is about growing up and finding out who you are and going to new places, parts unknown, and exploring new things and growing up through the process of experiencing new things. What is up? I am Jake, and this is Totally Flow. Welcome back to the show. Whether you're watching or listening, today I got a special episode for you guys all about movies, okay? Movies have played such a major role in my life ever since I was a little kid. I have foundational memories watching Disney Channel original movies with my siblings, and then even watching The Legend of Zorro and Daredevil and all of these mature movies just as a little boy. And I think starting at such a young age, I developed such a profound love and adoration for movies. And they've now become such a big part of my life where most days I watch a movie in the evening. And a lot of the time I'm looking forward to the evening every day because I know I'm going to watch something. I know I'm going to be entertained. And I know I'm just going to allow myself to just kind of turn off my mind and escape in the cinematic universe of the given story that I'm watching on screen. So this week I wanted to talk about my top 3 favorite movies I've watched of 2022 thus far. Each year, I've been doing this thing for the last maybe 3 years where I document every single movie I watch in a list. And I don't rank any of the movies. I don't give them a good or a bad or, a certain amount of stars because I think that movies are ever changing and a movie that I love today, I might not like in a couple weeks. So I choose to not rate them because I kind of give them the chance, I give them the opportunity to reprove themselves to me down the line. So I keep a running list of every movie I watch. And a couple years ago, I think in 2020, I did 120 movies. And then in 2021, I think I did something 100 movies. And this year, today is May 24th, 2022, and last night I just watched my 50th movie of the year. So it looks like I'm on track to break my record of most movies watched. And we're not even halfway through the year. But today is movie day. And my 3 movies that I want to talk about are Mr. Deeds, okay, an Adam Sandler classic. A movie called Win a Date with Tad Hamilton, which is a 2004 rom-com. And then lastly, Along for the Ride, which is a coming-of-age rom-com drama from Netflix, 2022, a brand new movie. And those are my top favorites on a whole list of 50 movies. A whole bunch of classics, a whole bunch of new ones, and not on the list, probably 30 other movies that I've started and then quit 20 minutes in because I think time is precious. And if I don't really enjoy a movie right off the start, then I'm going to, stop it and start a new one because I think there's a million great movies out there. So why spend your time watching a not so good one? But you never know. Maybe some of the movies that I started but didn't finish, I'll come back to eventually and we'll have a fresh frame of mind. I'll be coming at it from a different perspective based on the chapter in my life, and I'll like it then. So let's hop into movie number 1, Mr. Deeds. Okay, and I want to rank these 3 movies with 3 categories: genre, vibe, and what was the last one? Genre, vibe, and visuals, the cinematography, the visual style of the movie, and all that jazz. And the last thing I'll say before I get started is I actually recently graduated from film school. Not that that gives me any like extra validity or credit, but I just love movies so much that I even wanted to go to school, wanted to study, and I consider every movie I watch like a lesson, or I'm learning new things. I'm picking up on what I love and what I don't love, and how I can eventually, someday, crossing my fingers, if I ever get the chance to make my own movie, the little bits and pieces that I want to implement, the story structure, all that kind of stuff. So let's hop into movie number 1, Mr. Deeds. So Mr. Deeds is a comedy first, for sure. Then it has a little bit of romance. So it's like a comedy romantic movie from the early 2000s. It's got Adam Sandler in the lead. It's got Winona Ryder. And this movie is so special to me because I used to watch it when I was a little kid. Then I totally forgot about it. And then this year, a couple months ago, I decided I'm going to give this movie a rewatch. And upon rewatch, the movie was like twice as good as I remember. And visually speaking, the movie's like shot on film and has this really early 2000s type of vibe where everything, and it's a comedy movie. So a lot of the time, the visual style is going to be different based on the genre. So if you have a romantic comedy, it's going to be a lot of, bright colors and a lot of just bright lighting on people's skin so you can see like the whole thing. Whereas if you're watching like a gritty drama, it's going to be a lot of dark shadows and all that kind of stuff. So this movie's full of light, full of color, full of this early 2000s energy, and it's so good. The style is so good. The pacing is so good. The edit is really good. And one of my favorite parts of the visual part of the movie is the scene where Adam Sandler, a.k.a. Longfellow Deeds, is leaving his small town. And he's emerging from this crowd of all the people in his small town that are saying goodbye to him just because he's going on vacation. And it's like such a funny scene. It looks like so joyful. It's like a crowd of people holding banners, and the green really pops on, the film stock. So I just love that scene. And yeah, so I think that's my visual take on Mr. Deeds. Genre, like I said, it's definitely comedy first. It's not a rom-com, because rom-com puts romance first, comedy second. This is comedy first, romance second. And my favorite part of the way that this movie plays into genre is the way that it balances between wacky, goofy absurdity and sweetness and good story, and it's pulling at your heartstrings. And it has a really great balance where as you're moving through the story, you'll have a moment where you might even shed a tear, and then followed by like a super funny, outrageous joke, almost like slapstick comedy. So I think this movie, out of all the movies I've watched, really has a perfect balance between those dramatic elements. And then lastly, vibe. This movie is it's like a perfect movie to watch with friends, a perfect movie to watch with your family. I watched it alone, and it just made me feel so warm, so good. The music is like quintessentially early 2000s, which definitely influences the vibe and how it leaves me feeling after the credits roll. So yeah, that's my take on Mr. Deeds. Definitely go check it out if you've never seen it. One of my favorite movies, and I'd love to rewatch it with some friends to see if the slapstick humor makes them laugh as well. Because sometimes I think if I'm watching movies by myself, I'm able to like laugh at the jokes twice as hard because I'm just like in the room by myself, which is kind of weird. You'd think the opposite. You'd think I'd be able to laugh at the jokes twice as hard with people around, because when they start laughing, I'd start laughing. But from all the movies I've watched, I think when I'm able to watch it fully solo, that's when I get the best viewing experience. So that's Mr. Deeds. Do a little audio check. All good. Now let's jump into movie number 2. Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. This is a 2004 rom-com for sure. Like I was saying earlier, this movie is romance first, comedy second, which makes it a rom-com. And it's got Topher Grace from That 70s Show. And I remember watching this movie, I think early high school, and I liked it a lot. But it was one of those movies that kind of gets forgotten. Like, I loved the viewing experience, but then because I didn't write the movie down, it just kind of like evaporated from my consciousness. But a couple months ago, I decided I'm going to give this movie a rewatch. And it was one of the sweetest, funniest, heartwarming, also has a really early 2000s vibe to it that's just like really fun to watch. Maybe just because like I'm an early 2000s kid. Actually, I'm a 90s baby, but I'm an early 2000s kid, you know? And it really just hits home for me. And the visual style of that movie, let's go visual style, also shot on film, also has tons of bright colors. I really like it. It's set a lot of the time in a small town and then contrasted with Los Angeles. So I really like the balance there where in the small town you get like country energy, and then when they go to LA, you get palm trees, you get funky music. The main actress in the movie is like absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. So that's also great visual. And there's I don't even know what kind of character you'd call him, like the love interest. That's not the main character. Like the main character is Topher Grace, but there's another love interest. And that guy is like quintessential hunk, good looking Hollywood guy. So visually speaking, all those components added together creates this awesome movie. There's this one scene that I love. And they're like on this ranch and they're chopping wood. And it's like this masculinity showdown between the scrawny guy and the super buff guy. And that's like the funniest, best scene of the movie, in my opinion. So now let's jump into genre. This movie is romantic comedy. Topher Grace has such a unique comedic voice where it's really like subtle. All of his jokes are kind of like said under his breath. And he's also a really good actor that he's able to, you know, go really dramatic and then go sweet. And he's able to like swing on that pendulum in a really likable way. So I'd say big ups, Topher Grace. You're a legend. And this movie is awesome. You did a great job. I'd say you're probably one of my favorite actors. He's kind of one of those guys where if I'm thinking about actors, he doesn't pop right into my head. But when I really look at his filmography, I love so many of his movies. So this movie, genre-wise, I might even call it my favorite romantic comedy of the year, of course. That's easy. And then lastly, vibe. How does this movie make me feel? This movie is like the themes of the movie are friendship turned into love, and then that kind of in-between stage of like the friend zone, the unrequited love, I think is what it's called. And, you know, you don't see that many movies about that these days. And I think this movie, the first time I watched it, hit home. And now, as an adult, I'm able to watch it with like a new perspective. And it feels really good to kind of like see the progression of friends to friend zone, and then kind of like the struggle to break through that friend zone. So if you're in the friend zone or have ever been there, definitely watch this movie. It leaves you feeling great. I also love the female confidant in this movie. That's like a cliche in a lot of rom-coms, that the main female protagonist is going to have like a best friend that lifts her up or makes her see things in a different way. And the female best friend, confidant, is amazing in this movie. So yeah, that is Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. And lastly, let's jump into our last best movie of the year so far, which is Along for the Ride. If you follow me on TikTok, I made a little TikTok about how much I like this movie. And the title is not, it's a little lackluster in my opinion, but the movie is so good. And it was unexpectedly good in my opinion, because I watched like all of the coming of age Netflix movies whenever they come out. And sometimes, they make me laugh, they make me feel good. But this movie, out of all of them, was like the most artistic. And I loved it the most because I could see from a filmmaking perspective, like tons of visual references that really resonated with the movies that I watched growing up. For instance, the movie has a food fight, which is like an early 2000s, stereotype. The movie has action sports. The main love interest is riding a bike, and there's a lot of biking, BMX in the movie. That's also like an early 2000s, cliche. The film also has tons of newness. The score is by a band called Beach House, or is it Space House? No, it's Beach House. And the score is like super ethereal and cool and has all these synthesizers. So it really puts like this vibe into the movie that really feels fresh and new and representative of like 2022. And I loved that I didn't know, any of the actors. They were like fresh faces, and especially the lead guy in the movie. He's like actually a really good actor, and I'd love to see more of the films that he'll be making. I loved how they dress. I love the dialogue. The movie was actually based on a book, which I haven't read. But I think, all in all, I really liked the movie. Visually speaking, I loved how it was set at the beach. I am born and raised in a little beach town, and the movie's set in a beach town on the East Coast. So I kind of resonate and relate with a lot of those beach town experiences. I love the night scenes. And I guess I just related to the movie a lot because the main protagonist girl is like an insomniac. And recently, I think I've been staying up a lot later, just randomly. I'm not necessarily an insomniac. I love sleep. I'm easy to fall asleep. But I just relate to the night owl type of energy. So this movie just really hit on a lot of fronts. I really enjoyed the cinematography. And one of my favorite scenes is when they go to this like night speakeasy pie shop. Which sounds so Netflix, saying that out loud. Like it's such a Netflix thing to do and create. But yeah, it was a really sweet movie. I liked it a lot, and I think you should check it out. That's my visual rundown of the movie. It's definitely shot on digital. It has that really clean, how would I even describe the look of the Netflix vibe? Arri Alexa is probably the camera. Shot on anamorphic lenses, which if you don't know like film terms, that's basically just like a super wide looking lens that kind of distorts the light in the distance and provides a unique visual texture to like the skin and whatever's in focus. And a lot of Netflix shows and movies do that to provide it with like a unique indie type of visual language. So that's a visual rundown. Next, let's hop into genre. This is for sure coming of age first, then with a little bit of romance, or a lot of bit of romance, and then a little bit of comedy. Coming of age, romance, comedy. And I think this movie just fits all those boxes. It doesn't have any jokes that make me like fall on the floor laughing. And it has a little bit of romance that pulls at my heartstrings. But most of all, I think the movie is about growing up and finding out who you are and going to new places, parts unknown, and exploring new things and growing up through the process of experiencing new things. And the protagonist, Auden, in the movie does that over the course of a summer. And I really liked this movie. So that's the genre rundown. And lastly, vibe. I can't speak enough about how much I love the soundtrack / score of this film. Beach House did such a good job. And it just makes the movie feel truly original. Out of all the Netflix coming-of-age movies I've seen, the soundtrack definitely separates it and makes it feel artistic, indie, memorable. So definitely go check out Along for the Ride. And those are my 3 movies. Dang. I'm stoked that I got through all those and was able to speak somewhat fluidly. And last but not least, before we end the episode, I want to run through a couple of honorable mentions. First, we got Fresh, which is a horror movie. And if you know me personally, you know that I absolutely will never watch horror movies. I think that movies and cinema in general, or just like movies and entertainment in general, is meant to like leave you with a vibe, leave you with a feeling that is going to like improve your life or see life in new ways. And personally, horror doesn't do it for me, because every time I watch a horror movie, I need to cleanse my mental palate with an episode of New Girl or an episode of How I Met Your Mother, something super light and fluffy to make me feel like I'm not going to have nightmares. So the movie Fresh is a horror movie, but it's kind of like a suspense forward horror movie. And it's so original, so good, so many twists and turns. It's on Hulu, and that's like my number 4. So definitely go check out Fresh. My favorite part of that movie is that the credits happen like 1/4 of the way through the movie, which is like such a unique switch up that you never see. Like you never see that. And when I saw it for the first time, I was like, whoa, that was so original. This is one of those movies that I'm definitely going to come back to. Next honorable mention, Office Space, classic 90s movie I watched for the first time. And if you have a job that you don't like, or maybe you're just having a day where you're feeling like you want to do nothing, but you have to do your to-do list, this is the movie for you. So good, so funny. It plays with rap music in a really unique way. Definitely go check it out. Last night I watched a movie called Summer Days, Summer Nights, which is a movie about summer in Long Island in the 1980s. And this was like an ambitious film because it's kind of a hangout movie. And hangout movies is like its own genre, its own subgenre of like coming of age movies. And it really doesn't have that strict of a structure, whereas most movies have like an act 1, act 2, act 3. Hangout movies more provide the audience with a vibe that just feels good to sit in, to get to know the characters, to listen to music, to get love, to get action, to get, adventure, all that kind of thing, all those kinds of things. Summer Days, Summer Nights is a great new hangout film. The first 20 minutes didn't really pull me in, so I almost turned it off, but then I didn't, and I really enjoyed the latter half of the film. Another one that I want to shout out is called Calendar Girl. This is a older movie, I want to say 90s, maybe 80s, and it's a super weird movie about 3 weird guys that go to Los Angeles for the first time in their lives to try to find and go on a date with Marilyn Monroe. And it sounds like a weird premise. It is a super weird movie, but my favorite part of this movie is that they don't actually, like, Marilyn Monroe isn't actually in the movie, but they use the camera in all these unique ways So it feels like Marilyn Monroe is in the movie because it's like a blonde woman shot over the shoulder and you'll just see her silhouette, or you'll just see her legs scurrying out of the frame. Like it's all these little tricks and camera movements that make it feel like Marilyn Monroe is actually a character in the movie. And my last honorable mention is a movie called Valley Girl. This movie is so 80s, the most 80s movie I've ever seen. One of Nicolas Cage's very first performances. And it's super, like, the pacing of the movie is a little weird, but, and I kind of feel like you could chop out the middle 30 minutes of the movie and just glue it back together and it would run really easy and better. But Nicolas Cage just like brings this super passionate performance, and it's fun to see him like in a, super young. And there's this one scene in the movie where they are driving through the Hollywood Hills in a convertible at night, and just a really inspiring shot that I kind of like took mental note of. And if I ever make a movie, I'm probably going to try to create a shot just like that. So that is my movie episode. Last thing I'll mention that I forgot to mention during my Mr. Deeds segment is that Mr. Deeds is actually a remake of a, I want to say, 1940s movie called like Mr. Deeds is Coming to Town or something. And I tried to watch that movie, and I got through like 40 minutes of it and couldn't manage to finish the rest. But Mr. Deeds is a remake, so I was surprised to learn that. So yeah, that's my movie rundown. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments, or tag me on social media, TikTok, Instagram, what your favorite movies are thus far of 2022. I hope that I will make a second episode like this of my favorite movies of the second half of 2022. And I really hope that I break my record for the past 2 years. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Totally Flow, is always changing. And this week I was like trying to think of an idea of what I wanted this episode to be. And I just didn't have that motivation. And what I ended up turning to was just like, I just want to like sit and watch movies. Like I just want to relax and turn on things that I enjoy. So this is kind of my experiment and my quest to like make something about what's really resonating with my heart at this given moment, which is movies and my love for movies. So I hope you enjoyed. See you next week. Love you. Bless you. Thank you. See you soon.